What's going on, guys? Chuck here. Um, this is a little different than usual. I've got nothing here to present, nothing to show off. This is just basically me having a conversation with you. um, so, my apologies. If this is something for you, it's probably a little long form, and it'll just be having a discussion. Like I said, um, it is beginning of December. We're approaching the end of the year, and you're into going to 2025, which is mind-boggling to me. And it got me realizing I've been doing this for about 4 years now. I started in 2000, like right around October 2000. Actually started just after I got that Friday the 13th box set from Scream. So I was thinking about that and the fact that I turned 50 next year, which is wow. It's a lot to think about. But it got me thinking, you know, why am I here? What am I doing this for? What's the purpose? Uh, why am I sharing myself with all of you wonderful people? Um, and for those of you that care, I do appreciate it. But so yeah, I guess I thought this is kind of a chance for me to look back and go over my origin story, if you will. What brought me to this point. Where do I come from? Like I said, when you hit 50, you're doing a lot of looking back and realizing it's wow. 50 years is a long time. But then again, it's not at the same time, but a lot of it's happened in that time. Myself, I said, I was born in '75. I said, I'm so grateful that I lived, when I did, when I have. Like, I'm not dead yet. But, growing up in the 80s, people always talk about the 80s for nostalgia time. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug. People always are going on and on about the 80s. And for a reason, because I really think that is the greatest decade in pop culture ever. And, I am so happy to have lived through it. A lot of people, looking at YouTube, they're looking back at it in a retro style and, liking these things. But, there's very few people who I think who actually experienced it. I mean, I see, not saying there aren't, because I know there are a few. A lot of people, I see they're 90s kids, more or less, but no one talks about the 90s. It's all about the glory of the 80s. When there were no rules, no one cared. It just did whatever it seemed. It was just a more free time and in pop culture. And not to say that our decades aren't don't catch pop culture in some way, but I really think that that time did it. And who knows? Maybe in 2035, that kid who's born in 1985, they'll have more retrospective about the 90s by then when they turn 50 in 10 years. I don't know. But I grew up and I was born in '75, just before Jaws hit. That later that year would change the way we look at blockbusters. 3 years later, I was born in '70. Or I was born 3 years later. '77, Star Wars would come out and change how the world would look at science fiction and fantasy films. And then you had all these great, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, all these wonderful things in film. I mean, like I said, as a kid growing up, I did see a lot of movies, which is kind of where I got my love. But without knowing it, that's the weird thing. Is I remember too much. I was born in Michigan. I spent the years from 1975 to the summer of '83 in Michigan, primarily Saginaw. And there's a lot of things I remember here and there off and on. Star Wars is always the big thing. I was a big Star Wars kid. But I do remember, I may have mentioned this before, at one point we lived down the street from a movie theater. And, on Saturday nights, my mom would take me to the movie theater. It's like a one-screen theater. In hindsight, I'm pretty sure it wasn't my first run. It had to be. She could at least show me the tickets were only like $1. But that's where I see all these great movies of that time. And there's, God, I saw so many. Any Star Wars release that came out, I saw there. I remember seeing the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Secret of NIMH. I saw Firefox, the toy. Was it Some Kind of Hero, Richard Pryor? One movie no one talks about, I forgot about, but I remember seeing it there. um, so many other ones that just I can't think of right now, but I know we went there all the time, and it was just a wonderful thing. I had, we all occasionally we went to other theaters. There was like this one theater, I think it was the first big Cineplex that I remember at the time was like called Quad 8. I always remember this because we would drive on the interstate, and I could see the big 8 hanging, sign. Uh, Driving down the interstate, it was like one of the big, like you see like a big hotel or restaurant sign driving down the interstate, but it was up there in the sky. It had the big number 8. It was a Quad 8. It was a big 8-screen theater, and I remember going there at night and seeing Jekyll and Hyde together again in the theater, which I had no business going to at that age. I had an aunt that took me and her kids to the theater all the time. It was because of her I saw my first Disney film, which was Robin Hood, which I love to this day. And it's probably my favorite Disney film, and it's not even the best one. But it means a lot to me. And actually, it was the last Disney film I'd see for years because I never really got into Disney until I was a grown adult. She took me to see my first Star Trek film. She took me to see Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I had no idea what Star Trek was, but because of that, I became a fan of Star Trek. We also went to those theaters. I saw Superman 2 on the big screen, and so many memories. In that same theater, I think maybe next week and next day we went over and saw Camel Run Part 2, or excuse me, Camel Run, not Part 2, but the first Camel Run. So yeah, I mean, movies were such a big thing for me as a kid at that time, without me even knowing it. I remember even going to the drive-in a couple times. I remember seeing The Empire Strikes Back on the drive-in screen. I saw Popeye, Airplane. I know I saw Smokey and the Bandit at the drive-in, even though it came out in '77. I was 2, but I know I saw it. I distinctly remember seeing it in a drive-in theater. But movies were always such a big point in my life. As a kid, I also read a lot, and I gravitated toward a lot of movie tie-in novels, which seems like a thing they don't do anymore. But that was all the rage, for a good portion. Even of my teen years, a lot of movies that have novelizations. I read those. A lot of times that's how I learned how to read. I'm reading the novels of Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back out from the library. But the big thing for me was we had HBO. And this is just, at the time, it was just HBO and regular TV. We had a flip HBO, regular TV. There was no other cable, at least not to my knowledge. And that's where most of my viewing came from. Because you'd watch the same movies over and over again. I mean, Caveman was a big one with Ringo Starr. Kill and Kill Again, like the first martial arts movie I ever saw, which is like my favorite. And it's so ridiculous and silly. I have a poster right here you can hang up. I bought it at the drive-in. I love that movie so much. Well, there's other staples. Take This Job and Shove It was a movie they showed all the time on HBO. I would watch, and I love it. I'm so happy when I got that from King of Lorber a couple years ago. They released it because it was not out there anywhere. I was so thrilled to get that movie. That's when I saw it at the theater with my mom too. But yeah, there's so many movies that we play on cable over and over again. An American Werewolf in London, which was the very first horror film I recall seeing, and it is my absolute favorite one to this day. That really struck a chord in me. And again, the effects and made me like horror films. I remember, seeing the little HBO ads for the month. I remember seeing an ad for Friday the 13th Part 2, and so Jenny holding the pitchfork and advertising was coming out. I was like, oh, that's really cool. But there's that, and again, there was just so many movies that would be over and over again from that time period that were just blow my mind. I would also, back at the library, would read books on the old Universal horror films and those monsters, and learn about Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney. So I was soaking up this information about movies and horror films and everything for the longest time as a kid, without really knowing I was doing it. It just was just doing it. So I developed that love for movies then, again, without even knowing it. One of my biggest memories is, I said my dad and I weren't really close because he wasn't in the picture. Nothing bad. It just how it worked out. I didn't know any different. That's just how things were. But I always remember the one really good memory I have of my dad is he took me out on a Saturday. We went and had lunch. He bought me this little die-cast Millennium Falcon, which is so cool. And then he took me to see a Flash Gordon, which I love this movie. That movie this day, and I've talked about this before. I took Chris to see Flash Gordon. That movie speaks a lot to me, and it's because of that. So again, these are just wonderful memories. I also remember movies on regular TV, which was a huge thing. And it's something you'll never see anymore. Which back when television viewing, the movies on TV was an event. It was only you only saw movies in the theater, and that was it. Like a couple years later or whatever, they'd show up on TV, and it'd be a huge event. The ABC Sunday night movie. Everybody got to be there. And I do miss the gather around television. It's a event to come see this because it's a major thing. And you have like the Sunday night movie. Like I said, I saw Star Trek Motion Picture, Superman the movie. I remember the Deal De Laurentiis King Kong. Distinctly remember these as the ABC Sunday night movies. Of course, I also remember all of them being broken into 2 parts because they're so long. They got so many commercials into them, and they would also put extended scenes into them to stretch them out, which is one of the first ways I learned about how films differ sometimes. But all this great nostalgia for that, which helped build up my love for film. Fast forward to I leave Michigan under dubious circumstances. That's a whole other story. To come here to Indiana, where I currently reside, my mom and I. And, the movie bug didn't really, wasn't with me too much for the longest time, early teen years. I was still trying to figure out, a lot of what I, was into. It wasn't really until I was in my late 20s, so I really figured out what my thing was, which is a damn shame, but hey, we get there whenever. But I know this was the height of the VHS rentals in my teens, and man, I have so many great fond memories of renting VHS tapes, which is probably where a lot of, the obscure stuff kicked off. We still had the cable, still watched that. But we would go to a rental store. I remember one of the first movies we ever rented was Miss 45, which is not the movie you should rent as a kid. The family movie. But I remember seeing it, and it stuck with me for the longest time. I have that on Blu-ray, some special edition. I was very excited to get that because of that reason. A very nostalgic memory. But we would rent movies constantly. But again, a lot of that would fade out over time. Not really thinking too much about it. I mean, I watched movies on cable, but it really didn't kick in heavy with me until my late teens. Late teens, early 20s. Late teens, really. When I met my good friend, one of my best friends, her name is Elizabeth. I've mentioned her before. We hit it off very well from the very beginning. And we had mostly on a love of movies and obscure stuff too. We talked about to the point where eventually we would find time to, or we watch movies over the phone. Because you talking over the phone with a cord all night. You put in a VCR tape. We watched Grease 2 this way. We talked about it and commented on it. It was hilarious because I loved Grease, and I had a copy of Grease 2, but I only had a recorded from television, edited for television version. Because my mom, I mentioned this before, she would record anything. She had VCR tapes, or VHS tapes, and would record, we had hundreds. This is kind of how this started. She had a whole shelf of VHS tapes full with each one, like at SLP speed, 6 hours, 3 movies per tape of just about anything. She would record anything. And she had a little book, kept track of what was on there. And I'd go through and watch these movies. I'd find ones I like. And I watch them over and over again. I'd also look for the ones that seemed like they were dirty. I'd watch those and look for them. It became kind of fun. This is fun. Look for it. I'm going to scan through it and see what's in here, what's it's about. And sometimes you find hidden gems unknowingly that she recorded. Because again, she just recorded anything. She just looked at the title. Last time I was interesting. I'm going to record that. And then, I love her. That's kind of what she still does, now when she's got so many movies herself, just random, a lot of knockoff stuff because it just sounds interesting. So she just buys it or bought it. She doesn't do it anymore, but it's what she did for a while. But Elizabeth and I, she actually she had the theatrical version of Grease 2, and I just had this television version, and there were scenes in there I totally missed, didn't even know about. She was telling me about, so we bonded on that, and years later we actually become a couple. We would take trips to the flea market. We had a local flea market, and inside they had like about 3 or 4 different VHS shops selling used VHS for like $3 a piece. And, oh man, we bought so many. I mean, prior to that, like the first VHS tape I remember buying was probably Batman, because that was the first one that was really majorly sold at a retail price for like $20, I think it was. Then I bought a copy of Empire Strikes Back on VHS. So it was like how that started. And then when we were there, I bought the Indiana Jones trilogy. So I had this little one of these skinny shelves, which I've showed you like I have here, and they were just my first stack of VHS tapes. And that's how that started. And over time, that's what I would do, just buying VHS tapes. I had no intention of being a collector. Even when I was collecting, I was just buying movies because I liked the movies. Buying movies from my childhood. We go through the flea markets, and you say, "Oh my God, I've seen that forever! Like, get that and get this," and I found movies that she hadn't seen she would like, and she'd find movies that she loved that I hadn't seen, watch them, and it was just, we're expanding horizons, and it's just so cool. So we had the shelves. I mean, the little apartment we were staying in, I had wall to wall of these little skinny shelves full of VHS tapes. Hundreds of VHS tapes. My God, it was crazy. I remember through that I started learning things about home theater system, because I was so excited we got a 27-inch TV. Oh, biggest TV you can have, so cool, big tube, giant, huge TV. I remember I got a VHS rewinder. That's so cool. I had to rewind wear out the heads of my VCR. I can put my tape on the rewinder and save the heads of my VCR, my hi-fi VCR, intact, because that's how I was. And then I remember I bought my first home theater system in a box, which out of that, I think all that remains is my center speaker and 2 rear speakers of that set. I replaced the receiver multiple times. I just replaced, when I got this new setup here, replaced the bookshelf speakers with tower speakers. And I've added 2 more speakers to make it 7.1. But yeah, the subwoofer died on me years ago. I had to buy a new one. But, I held on to that RCA out of the box receiver. That was my first in the home theater. And remember, with the VCR, I got the SVHS cable. So I make it high end. But not just the yellow and red or white cables, red, white, and yellow cables, video and audio, but, the SVHS cable. So I get the really cool VCR. I was getting high quality. And it was at this time, too, I started learning about letterbox. It was when I bought the Star Wars VHS box set, and I learned what letterbox was. And I was like, it's funny, because for years you're watching all these movies over and over again. You're watching them on TV, and you have no clue that what you're missing until my eyes are open to this wider screen vision, and there's so much more image. Oh my God, how did I miss this? And how am I watching on this little square TV? I would never watch anything any other way again. I made sure I get or when I got VHS tapes, I make sure I'm looking for the widescreen or letterbox copy. So this was my education into, better quality film, or film study. Of course, I was arching out into, more traditional film, not just the schlock. Elizabeth and I were big Oscar fans. I've talked about before, and we started the project of watching all the Best Picture winners, or renting them and watching them, and opening, your eyes to other stuff besides just the typical, kind of opening up to all ranges, which I've always, been a fan of, just loving movie as a whole, not just one genre of overall else, but just loving it. Film is film. good or bad. Um, so yeah, and that was how things were. When DVD came out, we finally broke down and got a DVD player. I remember my first DVDs we bought were Leaving Las Vegas and The Doors. I still have that Leaving Las Vegas DVD. The Doors have been replaced like 3 times, but I still have that Leaving Las Vegas DVD. And I think the third one I bought was People vs. Larry Flint, which I still have too. But I remember I had one small shelf of DVDs, and then when we would split up, I was able to hold on to all the VHS tapes. So I had this huge collection of movies. You know, people come over, man, you've got so many movies, and you know, okay, yeah, it's cool. I never really thought much about it. I had these movies. It's fine. I wasn't trying to be a collector. I didn't know there was such a thing. I just had movies. I like movies. I had these movies. Over time, around the time, when Cheryl and I would get together, she would actually help me upgrade those VHS tapes and buying DVD copies, and replacing, making shelf space. I had a lot of, VHS tapes take a lot of space. Especially when you had stuff like, there were 2 tapes or whatever, they take up so much space. And I had them all over. And we had a very small, half a double apartment, and they were all over the front room. I had one of the big cabinets you open up with drawers full, and I had little small shelves all around the walls. There was nowhere you could go. And my home theater had wires hanging. It was ugly. It was not pretty. It was a little small space too. This is not a good apartment, but that's what we had. But she would help me go through and upgrade to getting DVDs, and then that's when I started the idea of my Best Picture collection. This is the one thing I thought was I'm going to collect was the Best Pictures. We would go to Barnes & Noble because they had a shelf of Best Picture stuff, and we'd buy it. And I was very particular trying to find the best DVD of whatever Best Picture, and that's when that started. And it's still being upgraded to this day. But that's also when I, even back in VHS with stuff like Anchor Bay, when I was starting to learn about, collector's VHS tapes or special edition, limited edition, those kind of things, and it carried on then in DVD. But again, I'm not really looking into as I'm collecting. I'm a collector. I'm just buying movies. That's what I do. I love movies and buying movies. People always come like, God, you've got so many movies. Like, that's okay. You must have seen every movie ever made. No, but everyone says that. To this day, they still say that. And that's nowhere true. It's even less true now because I have hardly any time to watch movies now. Back then, I go to the movie theater like 2-3 times a week. I was renting movies all the time. I had no kids, no responsibilities. It was just me. It was so much easier to do. Not so much now. Pardon me. Caffeine free because it is late. So that's how the collection came about at that point. And then when the high def war started with Blu-ray and HD DVD, I hadn't upgraded yet. I didn't know what we were doing until one Black Friday. Cheryl bought an HD DVD player on sale. So you know what that meant. That meant automatically that was the format I was going to lose. So we had this HD DVD player, and I think it came with 300 and Bourne Identity, I think, in the HD DVD format. Which, by all accounts, I've heard sometimes people say it might have been a little better. I don't know. I watched them used it a couple times before it went out, and then we eventually. Well, I never bought a Blu-ray player. I bought a PlayStation 3. That's how I got a Blu-ray player, and that was my Blu-ray player for the longest time. Up until really just recently, I would just use a PlayStation as a Blu-ray player. I use the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 4, and the PlayStation 5. I use the PlayStation 5 as a 4K player up until I realized that you're not getting the best 4K quality out of a PlayStation 5 as you would as with a dedicated 4K player. So that's when I bought my Panasonic 4K player, and that's strictly what I use now. I no longer use the PS5, the Coke. But so I'm getting ahead of myself, but yeah, that's how we ended up getting to Blu-ray. And I still remember the very first Blu-ray I bought after I got the PlayStation 3 was Iron Man. and I still have that exact Blu-ray, to this day. But that was the very first Blu-ray I bought. And I think the second might have been Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But so now we're, I'm in the process of not really upgrading to Blu-ray, but in some cases, yes. Mostly it's, I'm buying a lot of Blu-ray DVD combos, because that's the thing. Kind of like they have now with the 4K Blu-ray combos. It's kind of funny. And along this line, television on DVD is a popular thing. I picked up the first season of Star Trek: Next Generation. Was like the first TV set I bought, which was like $100 for that set, which is It's crazy. If you ever seen those original sets, it's like, all those Star Trek sets I bought, Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, all those were like $100 sets each, which is ridiculous because now that stuff would sell for like $40. But that, those sets were huge. But it was awesome. You have TV on DVD. It was a new thing, and which is I think it's kind of fading out now, which is too bad. There's still some out there, but I remember how it was really big around that time. So, the shelf is much smaller. I'm getting these things, but I'm not. I don't know. Like I said, I over time I'm buying stuff. I have this collection. But I'm not calling it a collection, or I'm not saying I'm not a collector. I'm just buying movies. I like movies and buying movies. Everybody's, oh, you're a movie guy, whatever. And it's like, it's so cool. The more I dig into them, I really want to talk about it. I love them. I want to show them off. But I have no one to have this conversation with, which is sad. It's just, me and this. I'm very proud of stuff, but who am I going to talk to about it? Nobody. So it's kind of like, for a while I was a big comic collector too, and I had no one to talk comic books with, because no one I knew collected comics, just me. I could talk about stuff and how cool these things were, but well, okay, whatever. And that's kind of how it was with the movies I bought. No one cared. A lot of the friends I have, which are all great friends, but they're gamers, and I would say gamers, I don't mean like video gamers. These people are, they have. My best friend Dave, he has a shelf like I do, but it's all around covered with board games. I mean, he's and all of other friends, they are board game fanatics. They buy all kinds of board games, and that's their thing. All of them, they just love, because they're all very competitive people, and I can't spend too much time around them because they're crazy. They're very competitive. I can't handle that. I can't play games with them anymore. Back in my young days, I play stuff like Monopoly, Clue, Sorry, those kind of games. But they got those, now these really crazy, over elaborate stuff that I can't even fathom. But they love them, and that's their thing. And I'm the oddball out there. So no one's talking movies. I can't, they come by, oh, you got a movie, that's cool. But I got this game, and they're just, that's it. Well, I would host get-togethers, and they're always playing the games, and that was it. So, at this time, I'm learning about stuff like Scream Factory, by accident. I think it's how I found like the Halloween set, just perusing online or Amazon. I don't know how I found out about it, but I did get it from Amazon, I believe. It was like probably my first big collector set, and knowing about this label and a couple other Scream Factory titles. But, and I'd find out stuff here and there, and I'd buy them, but never thinking too much about it. It really wasn't until the pandemic that things changed for me in this regard. And it's because we're home, doing anything, watching a lot of YouTube. And for the longest time, before that, when I was in the comics, I'd found podcasts. I listened to a lot of comic book podcasts, and I found movie podcasts, which were really cool. And this is where I started getting the bug, because here, like I told you, I had no one I could talk to about stuff. No one to talk to about, my comic love, my movie love, or, little insider stuff like that. But his podcasts were people who discussed the things that I knew about, that I liked, and it was so cool. Someone could speak to me, more or less. And I kind of found a big love for that. And I was like, oh man, I would love to do something like that, because I just want to talk about this stuff. And how do I do that? And I was like, every podcast in the world has been done. How do I do one that's unique? I can't think of anything. So I can never, make that leap, that step to to do that. But I really want to try something. So fast forward to the announcement that Scream Factory was going to do the Friday the 13th box set. And I was just blown away because, I love Friday the 13th. That is like my favorite horror franchise. And I was so excited to get these movies. I was also very excited to get the Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. Because at that time, I had upgraded my TV several times. Because I had, after that 27-inch, I got a 32-inch big tube. And then after I got 32, I got a 65-inch projection HD ready TV. Big box TV. Widescreen, our first widescreen television now. But, with HD because they had the component cables. Not HDMI, but component cables. And then eventually I replaced that with my 73-inch Mitsubishi with 3D TV. Which I was looking for 3D TV, I mentioned before. It was on sale and it was popular at the time, so I got it. And it was nice because I enjoyed it. I got good use out of it. So again, I was big into my home theater. I really wanted the home theater. I had the movie collection, but I wasn't a collector. I wasn't calling myself a collector. I was just buying movies I liked them, as I said. But when the announcement that Friday the 13th box set came out, I got so hyped and so excited. And for some reason, I think I did a search up on YouTube about it. Or I might have been, on YouTube prior to that, just looking at people who like movies and then start finding people talking about movies in different forms, different variations, and, about physical media. And that's when I discovered guys like Pizzal and Christian Hannah Horror and several other, YouTubers, but mainly those two. And like, wow, this is so cool. I would love to be able to, again, talk about this stuff that, I love and, I want to share this, cool things how I do. Then I decided, okay, that's it. When I get this Friday 13th box set, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start a YouTube channel just to show this off and talk about Friday the 13th, at least whatever I could. And that's kind of what I did. It wasn't my first video. I did a video prior to that talking about In Search of Darkness because it just come out. And if you go back, it's a really rough video. I have a fisheye, it looks terrible. And then I did the Friday 13th one, which is still bad because I was doing it on a laptop. It's, not that my quality is much better now. I'm still very amateurish, but it looks better than it did then. And I was doing a lot behind the camera because I didn't know how to be in front of the camera. And then I realized I couldn't be behind the camera because it was very taxing physically on me. And I'd be breathing heavy like a maniac and sweating to death, just sitting there hunching over the camera trying to show everything. If you go back and look at those older videos and you see just my hands, you'll hear me heavy breathing because I'm just gasping for breath. It's awful. But the important thing was I was doing it. I was getting out there. I was talking about this stuff. And that was a great release for me. And that's really what this whole thing's been. I told you all of that just to get to this point. And if you stuck through this, I do appreciate it. But again, going back to thinking, what was my reason for being here? Why am I doing this? Almost 50. I've been doing this for 4 years, and I don't have a big illustrious channel. I've got, like 517 subscribers, which I am thankful to all of you. I didn't expect to get 10. So, and the people have interacted with me through this, and it's great. I've got to interact with some great other content creators. I've spoken with Christian Hannah Horror. I've gotten comments from Born to Be Rad and from Pizzal who've commented on channels, which is awesome for me. I never like to talk to them personally, but we chatted maybe on Facebook. That's still really cool. I've obviously dealt with stuff like Blockbuster box sets through this and VHS slipcovers. So that's been really cool for me. Again, it's not like kind of big notoriety. I'm not a huge thing or deal. I'm not expecting like for Severin or anybody or Vinegar Syndrome come knocking on my door. Hey, here's some stuff you want to show for it. I ain't seen that happen anytime soon. But this has given me the outlet to be able to talk about what I want and know that there are people out there who care about this stuff, who will listen. and vice versa. I can hear about the stuff from someone else who's talking about it, and that's why I did this. Because, like I said, I don't have the outlet here. This back here, and I guess now I am a collector. I wasn't before, but after doing the YouTube, and then started paying attention to the announcements, the sales, and start picking this stuff up all the time, and getting the stuff that I want, and just being so. I mean, it's people tell me it's a really golden age. All stuff's coming out, and it's been really great. And learning about 4K from other people, and learning about other releases. I didn't know no clue about, and picking them up, and hearing their opinions of what they thought about them. It was so great. I could talk to somebody about this stuff. Maybe not directly, but they're talking, I'm listening, and it's coming through, and it's helping me, find. There's a lot of movies that I've picked up listening to those videos. So it's been a great way for me to, like I said, communicate, and be able to do what I wanted to do, which is just talk about movies, in whatever way. Whether I'm talking about the new release, or occasionally I can wax nostalgic about something, or if I'm able to sucker my son into coming here and doing something like this, because a lot of times that's what I'm doing too with him, which is fun. I really wish you guys see him on here a lot, and you think like, oh, he must really be. No, he's not. He's not the biggest movie guy. I think he does it to hang out with me, which is great. I'll take it. He just turned 14, so I'm gonna take every moment I can get. But it's fun to do this stuff with him, and as he gets older, he does pay more attention. But he's not quite the movie person that I am. He's nowhere near the movie person I am. His thing is all about music. But we had moments, and it's great, and I enjoy that. And Kara, same thing. She's trying. She's not quite there yet, but she always wants to. But I gotta reel her in. She's 9. It's a little very exciting personality, but it's fun. That's the reason what's great about the channel. I have those moments I can have with them, and they'll be frozen in time, as it were. I'll get to have that forever of that moment. But yeah, 4 years at this, and it's been fun, and I'm looking forward to keep doing it. I mean, I'm not expecting to ever get huge. Like I said, I'm grateful for everyone that's stuck around this long and who was willing to listen to me ramble. And I appreciate you letting me just open myself up to you guys. This is a way different video than I typically would do. But again, I just wanted to talk about, me. That sounded really self-serving, didn't it? But that's not quite what I meant. I hope you understand it. But just, like I said, my personal life, I don't get to have that kind of conversation I get to have with the YouTube audience. And this means a lot to me. So thank you for that. And, as I approach 50 in a couple months in March, this is something I look forward to. I enjoy this. I wish I could do it more, honestly. It is just a hobby that I barely have time for between work and, kids and family life in general. And it's great when I can get on here and find the time to do something, record something, and put it out there. I get a kick out of it. It's a joy. It's a thrill. And I love when I get responses back, talk to people or anything, or people, like I said, or just people just saying hi. I love that too. Any kind of, response is great. So thank you all for that. It's meant a lot to this old man that you've been so welcoming and so kind in these 4 years of me doing this. It does mean a lot. It's, words cannot express what this has meant to me, what it continues to mean to me, and how much of a cathartic experience it really is, to be perfectly honest. I deal with a lot of everyday stress and work stress, regular life stress, and here is where I de-stress, and this is, I get all out, and this is like a happy place. I said before, I will sit here and just kind of go over this, and it is my moment of zen. It really puts me at peace, and being able to share that with you and to talk to somebody out there, and knowing someone's listening, hopefully, is very cathartic for me, and it does wonder for the soul and the spirit. So thank you for that. And that's it. This has been a long rambling video. I do appreciate you guys sticking around. If you did, letting me just talk and and just get my feelings out there. They won't always be like this. I promise. I'm perfectly honest. I'm kind of in a lull right now. The mailbox is a little dried up. It's Christmas season. I have a lot of stuff in pre-order to come in. I'm trying to think of new ideas to put up here. That's the other thing too. Of what do I do? And I know that's, people have talked about in recent videos about, I think Middle Level Media actually won, what do you do? How do you keep doing content? And it's really spoke to me. I think it's probably the reason why I want to do this too, just to get myself out there. But yeah, I'm trying to find stuff that I can talk about. And I got a few ideas. Obviously, Chris and I are working on something for next year. Hopefully that works itself out. I have way more 3D stuff to talk about. I just got to get around to finding time for that. I think the next movie up ahead is The Mask. So I'm looking forward to that. I have a lot more of Cinema After Dark I really need to get into. I don't know. That's hit and miss, but it's something I like to talk about because, like I said, well, film is film. But other things, maybe a retro. So I'm just trying to think of some kind of ideas of what I can talk about just to make content. I really sometimes wish that I had a second person to bounce stuff off with. But again, finding the people and the time for something like that is crazy. Damn near impossible. So that's why it's just me. But who knows? Things could improve, and maybe I can even get a better setup than this phone. And a microphone, maybe. I don't know, better lighting. Whatever the case. But I'm constantly trying to improve. But thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you guys for listening. As I've said multiple times before, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to wrap this up as we've gone 45 minutes or so. Too long, I'm sure. But thank you. And, I'm not even going through the usual spiel. I'm just going to tell you, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for letting me, rant, if you will, and just thank you in general. Your support means a lot. And that's it. So until next time, this is Chuck saying I will see you on the other side.